Preserving history is important to the town of Cherokee. Today, they honored a local World War I hero whose pledge spoke to people across the nation. KTIV's Nick Reese has the story.
Private Martin Treptow was born in Bloomer, Wisconsin, but later moved to Cherokee, Iowa. From there, he went on to serve the country in World War I. Like many others who served in World War I, Treptow never made it home from battle, but he gained recognition across the country from the pledge that was found written in his pocket.
It's 38 words, and it's not flowery, it's not overdone. It's just from the heart. And you couple that with the fact that he lived it. He didn't just write this down, and he didn't plagiarize it somewhere. He wrote it and he lived it.
It epitomizes the American goals and the American spirit, and not willing to give up, and knowing that everything depends on us as individuals.
The pledge, where Treptow wrote, quote, "I will fight cheerfully and do my utmost as if the issue of the whole struggle depended on me alone," end quote, gained so much notoriety nationwide that former President Ronald Reagan said it in his inaugural address. Despite being killed at war, Treptow's family never received his Purple Hearts, something Copland didn't know until she was submitting his diary where the pledge was found to the Smithsonian Museum. After getting in contact with one of Wisconsin's senators, they were able to get the medals around a year later. Sunday afternoon, they were presented to the Sanford Museum in Cherokee at a special ceremony with the local American Legion post named in Treptow's honor.
It's a long time in coming, and it's extremely important to me, especially this town of Cherokee, how much they have done for Martin's memory and our family, and I'm extremely grateful.
Iowa District 3 Senator Lynn Evans was in attendance at the ceremony, and he's been working to honor Treptow's legacy on a statewide scale with a memorial on the Iowa State Capitol grounds.
People who visit the grounds, as they're visiting all the memorials up there, they'll be reminded of his sacrifice to our country. And it helps memorialize Cherokee County and the city of Cherokee as well.
Honoring and preserving that history is one of the things that makes Cherokee, Cherokee.
We like to reflect the history of this town and this area, and I think Martin is a good representative of the spirit that's in this area.
I've traveled a lot. I've really never seen that sort of spirit, that sort of remembrance of history and desire to keep it alive that I have in Cherokee, Iowa.
In Cherokee, Iowa, Nick Reese, KTIV News 4.
Treptow's medals will be displayed in an upcoming new exhibit at the Sanford Museum, where a number of important figures in American history who are from Cherokee will be honored.